For 6, right? 6 p.m.
Yeah, that's for 6 p.m. All right, I'm going to call this work session to order at 5:30, April 3rd, of the Parks and Recreation Commission. Yeah, so I saw people looking through their packet and everything. What this is we are doing an update on our Leif Hansen policy. This has gone forth to the commission and through the council before, and we're just kind of cleaning it up a little bit to hit modern times. One of the things you'll see is that we have, Leif Hansen is currently full, but we've added some spots. That was done through a discussion with the commission. I think a little over a year ago, we talked about different spots that we could add and some different like layouts. So I think we added just over 40 spots that people will be able to reserve. We've kind of kept that not completely open, but we wanted to review this policy and make some updates before we open that completely up. And just for everyone's general knowledge, there's an inventory, oh, that's for tonight, an inventory in the packet for tonight, but you can see a little blurb about Leif Hansen. Leif Hansen land was donated by the Hansen family to Beam Memorial Park. There is a number of plaques. It's gone through multiple extensions, but they always seem to fill up. So that's why we did another extension on it that community members can memorialize loved ones. And then I'm going to ask if our deputy clerk has anything to add.
Well, so I met with Tyler and City Clerk Shelley Sainer and looked at this policy. It hasn't been updated since 2001, and we thought it's probably a good time to go ahead and do that. So we made a list of ideas that we thought might be good for restructuring this, laid out in the memo in the packet. And if you want, I mean, we could just kind of go through them and I could get your guys' thoughts, ideas, any recommendations or input for things that you might want to see or might not want to see in this policy. I'm good? So starting off, not sure if you had a chance to look at the policy. So the original policy without the notes is on page 7 of your packet. And it's just not organized in a way that's very easy to find information. It doesn't have kind of sections for administration, for how exactly to reserve a permanent memorial or a memorial planting. So we thought taking the sections, taking the information in here, restructuring it into sections might make it easier to find. I made this layout kind of based on our cemetery policy that you guys worked on in 2022, or this commission worked on. So start off with purpose, add an administrative section, talks about records, preservation of park facilities, a disclaimer regarding damage to any of the plaques, kind of thing. So that's all new. That wasn't really in the old policy at all. And then from there, we'd break it down. Permanent memorials. There's memorial sidewalk plaques that you guys are all familiar with. We also have memorial rocks that are not very well known, but there are 3 of them in the Leif Hansen Park. So our policy actually has a little bit of information about that. So memorial plants and landscaping, requests for memorial planting, and then a little bit of information about the maintenance of those plantings. So, and then a section at the end, just prohibited uses in the park. There's a little bit of that in this already. We can kind of look through that in a little bit. So does that layout sound like a good plan for you guys? All right. Well, so then the next point is, if you look, you can see on page 4, I've got the policy broken down where I take each section and kind of talk about what new section I would put that in or if I would remove it. And so if you want to take a look at that, see if you agree with our recommendations. But one of the first ones is we would suggest removing references to council-approved planting materials. So it's the first one under plaque placement policies. It says the Kenai City Council has approved a design for the memorial park, and all planting will be done in accordance with the plan, and the suggested list of planting materials and any request for deviation from the planting materials shall be reviewed by council. So we have a list of planting materials that we have been distributing with this policy. And the fact that it's mentioned in this policy kind of makes it like an addendum to this policy. It's a council-approved list of planting materials. And I think Tyler could talk a little bit about what we've got on the list. We've got, I mean, there's, what is it? Mayday trees, choke cherries are currently on it.
Yes, and those are a big no-no. I think that the hope discussing with the clerks thing is that one of the reasons that we think we have the Parks Department is, we have multiple areas of expertise in this area, and one of my jobs is to stay up to date on this information. And May Days have been on a no plant list or recommended by the state for a long time, and we're looking at removing a lot of the May Day trees that aren't memorialized in the city and replacing them with a more natural species. But one of my roles is, I am on the Invasive Species Cooperative. It's a very long acronym, but it's a group of people that I think Commissioner Graham has probably attended a few of those meetings. But they always provided an updated list on plantings. Like they revised it this year and put it out. We have it pinned up in our crew board just so we can see it if we catch any flowers that aren't supposed to be out there. A lot of times they'll have flowers that will be like one, if we see it, we want to, if it's an invasive flower, like orange hawkweed's kind of hitting the point of no return, but that was a high priority for a long time. I think there's a daisy that's on there now too that we want to get rid of before it gets too invasive. That also includes trees, and that's something we do as the parks professional. And for us to be able to control that, not control that list, but have oversight over that list is probably the most effective way to make sure we aren't planning things we aren't supposed to in the city of Kenai.
So that's why we were recommending just removing that reference to it. If we're not referring to this council's approved list of planting materials, then this document, it'll still exist, but it won't be tied to the policy, so Tyler can have a little bit more control over it. Just keep it up to date, with better suggestions.
I guess it's a work session, so I can talk a little bit, I guess. On that planting list, is that something that we should make some addendums through council action? If it's got stuff that's approved council stuff that shouldn't be on there, should we maybe send me a quick blurb of what you want to remove, and then I can submit it for an updated revision
Well, so,
officially?
So what we're gonna do now, is we're gonna revise the policy, and I will, with the final revised policy that I bring to Parks, I think at their next meeting, it'll include all the changes that I make, and they will recommend to council. And so council at that time will see that at one time there was a list of planting materials, it was removed, and they can, decide.
Is it something that pertains to other things in the park, in the city, as far as the list?
I can pass it around if you want to take a look.
Yeah, I'd be kind of curious.
Here's not a whole lot of information on it, it's real brief.
And is this for just the parks, or is this something that was for all throughout the city?
This is just Leif Hansen Park.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And you're saying that these need to be gone? Is that what you're at?
Yes.
And Mayday?
Yep.
Is there stuff that you want to replace those with?
I could come up with a list of trees in there, yeah.
Just for reference, those two species are pretty well known to be toxic to moose. And so that's if anybody's not aware of Mayday or chokecherry trees are, not so helpful for moose in the community that are feeding in urban areas.
Well, I've had this conversation with people who've actually, I think like our Ragusa rose is pretty hardy and it does well in there as a shrub when people have added up. So all the spots are reserved, but not all the plaques have been ordered or taken or like filled yet. So on some of the plots, there are places where you can plant a shrub or a tree, and that's where this comes into play. And on our list, it says chokecherry. Great, moose don't eat it. They do. and it's not good for them. They get bright red birds, grab them, and then spread them around. And May Day, same thing. Great choice. And so I've been kind of contradicting this list. I'm like, no, that's not a great choice. And people are very receptive. They're just like, oh, okay. And then we just discuss like what another option could be for them.
Oh, Mike, sorry.
Yeah, I think an updated list when it comes to council of that, if we want to, or are we just going to wipe that complete and just have them refer to Parks and Rec for reference material? I mean, that might be just as easy, refer to Parks for approval of planting trees and get rid of that form completely. Is that what we're thinking?
I think what we were recommending is having this list, but having it be managed by the Parks and Rec director.
A little more fluid.
Yeah, a little bit more fluid as things are learned. I mean, as you can see, when it's tied to commissions and councils, sometimes it takes a long time to get updated. It hasn't been updated in 20 years. So it would allow for a lot more flexibility as the director learns something new about one of the plants, it can be removed, or if a new species, becomes available here that he thinks would be good, but it is up to you guys. Would you recommend removing the reference to this document and the policy and having it managed by administration, or do you want to leave that reference in and just kind of taking my cue from the commission?
I'd say remove and just have you guys manage it internally, so less hands in the fire.
And I will also note this, this document will be available online. It's going to be part of the packet that we'll publish with the application for plaques, the policy itself, and this document will all be online. So if you see anything on there that raises concern, you can always talk to Tyler after that. And again, it'll be fluid, so it'll be more easily changeable, so. All right.
I would agree. I think a policy is where we would consider static information, static expectations, and something like this list is more fluid, needs to be changed for whatever, environmental concerns, or the more we know, or maybe something's not available anymore, or maybe we just don't like the way certain things look and they want to be changed or they impact something else negatively. And I think that's where we need to trust the judgment of our administrators to make that decision, and it doesn't need to go through an entire policy change.
All right, so on to the next one here. Kind of similar. It's removing references to a council-approved plan. So again, it's these first two bullet points here. Council has approved a design, planning will be done in accordance with the plan, deviation from the plan. But as I'm sure you guys know, that there is a Parks and Rec master plan coming up. I think you all know a lot more about that than I do. But that is going to be what's guiding the infrastructure and planning in the future. And that plan, so this policy doesn't direct that plan. It's separate. This is about more administrative, reservations, that kind of thing. But as far as planning for the future and the plan and design of the park, that's going to be part of that master plan. So we just thought taking that reference out. Any thoughts? All right. Also, next point then, remove references to a licensed landscaper. Again, this is just something Parks and Rec can do this in-house, and they have been doing it in-house and doing it well for a while. So this is more just kind of like housekeeping update. We'll probably put something like, installation and planning materials will be overseen by the Parks and Rec department. That way, in the future, if they want to outsource, it'll still be like overseen by them. But this just brings it a little bit more up to date. Next part, add language regarding limited availability of space. So this is something that's not clear in the old policy, but we do want to make sure people understand when they reserve a plaque at the park that there's not space at every single plaque for a tree. There's just not. So there is, on our maps, it's designated which spots have the space for shrubs or for trees or for neither. So we do kind of want to make that clear in there that only specific areas within the park can accommodate them. And the space will be evaluated by the Parks Director. And this would also apply to new plantings. Over the last couple of years, we've gotten a few requests after plants have died to remove those plants and plant something new. And our Parks Department has been awesome about trying to do that, but it's not something that we can always guarantee is available. If a tree dies that has an extensive root system, we can't guarantee that can be dug up and a new one replanted. So just adding language in there to clarify that. Let's see. Next one, the old policy had references to future program expansion, which is not something that's typically in a policy. That would be part of the master plan. And it's talking about red memorial bricks and a memorial wall. And I think, we just don't want this policy to dictate whatever the master plan is going to come up with. You agree? Yeah. So, any thoughts on that? Right. Then the last one is at the end of the policy. There's a section that's Leif Hansen Memorial Park reservation information. And a lot of this, the Parks Department manages reservations for the gazebo, I believe, at the Leif Hansen Park, and other facilities in town. So they have their own guidelines for managing park reservations. So there's this whole section is quite out of date. It's saying that all reservations must be made in person. Now they're made online for our website. When this was written in 2001, that wasn't really an option. Refundable deposit, I don't think you guys are doing that, or I'm not sure, but so most of this is going to be taken out, but there are a few of the bullet points under the guidelines that I don't know, I thought I'd let you guys decide. I had planned kind of in the outline to have a section for prohibited uses, and there are some of those that are listed in here. Alcoholic beverages prohibited. I think it says that an adult must be present at all time. Dogs, riding, parking, or driving. Any bicycle, tricycle, motorcycle, motor vehicle, skateboard, or rollerblades through the park is prohibited. Arranging temporary structures of any kind. So for now, I have just taken those items and put them under the prohibited uses section is where I had recommended they be moved to in this part of your packet. But if you guys want to think if you agree with that, if there's anything you'd remove or add.
Since this essentially boils down to a complete restructuring of the policy, I think what would have been helpful is, I appreciate that the track changes was used to indicate where the changes are being made, but because it's creating whole new sections and, like I said, essentially recreating the policy, what would have been helpful to see with this would have been a mock-up of the new policy, so that it was clear to us what was going where with what, and that, I think that would be easier for us to make decisions about managing that as a new policy going forward.
Sure, I understand. And so I do want to make it clear, it's in very rough draft right now, but this is not the last time you guys are going to see this information for sure. Right now, we're just kind of talking about where things might go. But at your meeting in May is where I will bring back the draft with your recommendations, with the restructuring. And at that time, you can make any additional recommendations or changes. And then you'll vote to approve that, and then that will go to council for their final approval. But if you guys feel as though you want to see that draft before, I mean, we could probably make that happen at the next meeting.
That would be my preference. I think it's hard for me to provide you with my input and my suggestions for change without seeing it as a cohesive suggested policy.
Okay. I don't, it's up to Tyler if you want to do another work session before the next meeting, or,
Yeah, I think the best way then to address that would be do something likewise this, to review the final policy and then vote on it maybe at 6, because it doesn't sound like we have a lot of objections from what the commission's been saying going through this, so I don't think we'll have anything too drastic, but I think we could probably work on it before and then,
okay. So, well,
oh, no, then,
gotta think about this for a second and think about the timeline. If we do another work session before the next meeting, I don't think that would be noticeable. Like, I think that we might have to then put the final vote for the next draft, push that forward another month.
Is there an exigency that it would need to be done before? I mean, is pushing it 1 month an issue?
No, not necessarily. It's more just, I mean, there's not a hard deadline. It's more just that it's springtime, and I think we were kind of hoping to start advertising this soon. And when we start advertising and getting those reservations, we would hope to have the policy done and available for distribution at that time. So it's more just, we were hoping to get it done sooner, but there is not a hard deadline. Sorry.
Would it be possible to have a work session prior to the next meeting, a special work session perhaps?
Possibly. Sorry, I have a hard time hearing different conversations at once, so I do apologize. So having it prior to the next work session, I'm trying to think. It would kind of depend. If there was a lot of changes that needed to be made, then I would probably need to work on it longer and then republish it to meet noticing requirements, so that it would have to go to the next month. If it were something that I was bringing to you guys and you looked at, and maybe there was a tiny tweak or amendment here or there that was not really significant, then we could probably just at the next meeting approve it. But so it kind of depends. We could do that though, if that is what you guys are more comfortable with. If you want a little bit more time to digest this information with the draft outline.
I think the second scenario that you just posed is probably the most likely. This is not a life-ending policy. I mean,
No.
and I think that we're all pretty much in agreement with what's being suggested. Just seeing it cohesively together would make the difference. I think it's unlikely that there would be major suggested changes. So I think the second option that you're posing is likely.
All right, that sounds good. That's what we can do then.
discussion item at the May 1st meeting, and then if there's not big edits, we'll approve it, but if there's a lot of changes, we'll work on those and then bring it to the next meeting.
Or more like, instead of a discussion item, it would be another like this work session prior to the regular meeting. And then at the regular meeting, we'll put a discussion recommendation item on. if there's not major edits, then we can go ahead and approve it at that meeting. If there is, then we will postpone that discussion item to the next meeting. Does that work for you?
Yeah, I think, yeah, that works for me.
Does that work for you guys? All right. Well, in the meantime, like, this information is here. If you can think of anything that you want to add, please email me and Tyler and let me know your suggestions, and we can incorporate those ideas into the draft policy or into a memo for you guys to take a look at. So, all right. Is there any?
I don't have a solution for this, but under number 3, when you get to the, any inappropriately worded plaques of an objectionable nature will be removed. Probably have to come up with specific criteria for that.
That is true. Let me see. And I'm sorry, I saw that one on there. You said it was number 3. Is that under the policies, procedures, or?
It's under planting plaque placement policies.
Okay. Yeah, see, this outline is not easy to make it, to find stuff. So let me see. Oh, any inappropriately worded plaques of an objectionable nature will be removed. To be honest, so the procedure that we have right now for ordering these plaques is that they submit something to our office, and then I will help them design a plaque with the names and dates and sometimes artwork that they choose. And so I thought the wording of this was interesting. Any inappropriately worded plaques will be removed. I would think that any inappropriately worded plaques would probably not be placed to begin with.
Or screened
yeah.
for appropriateness,
Yeah.
and maybe indicate who that, I mean, it would be the Parks and Rec Department, I think. I think that's, if we don't have a specific policy on appropriateness of whatever,
Yeah. All right. Well, so you guys would like to see something in here about what kind of language would be objectionable. Is that right?
Who would be the one to decide that?
Yeah, so that decision would probably happen within the clerk's office, because we're the ones that receive the applications that have the design. So I mean, I would confer with the city clerk, of course, and probably Tyler, if there was something that was objectionable. And I mean, I would not go ahead and order something and then later, after it's been paid for in place, we would say, let's remove that. So,
It makes
Yeah.
sense to me to keep it
adding that,
open,
sorry.
open-ended, because to have a list of everything that could be objectionable is going to be really difficult, I think.
yeah, for sure.
I think they're just saying that, like you said, the clerk's office would have,
Will
the
approve.
clerk and Parks and Rec Director would have final discretion on final order or something.
Yeah,
right, I would just say inappropriately worded plaques of an objectionable nature are prohibited, period, or as determined, by the clerk's office in consult with the Parks and Recreation Department, or something describing the process that you think you would normally be doing briefly, is what my suggestion would be.
yeah, approval prior to ordering plaque, something of that.
Absolutely, yeah, I could definitely put something like that in. Thank you.
I just think when you're talking about policy, intentionally non-specific is your best way to go, but specific enough to meet the need. So, maybe a process is going to change where we're requiring people to order them themselves and bring them in. So if it says before ordering, that might pose a problem. If we keep things intentionally vague by just saying prohibited, period, where the line of prohibition occurs is really up for discretion when being applied. However, these actual enacting of the policies change, it leaves wiggle room for procedures to change without policies to change.
And I suspect you wouldn't order it if it was inappropriate anyway, because someone doesn't want to, they ordered a plaque, pay for it, and then you go, that's not going to work.
For sure. All right, well, those are great suggestions. I can definitely try to work that into the draft that I'll bring you guys next month. Let me see if there's any other things. And I didn't necessarily specify this. I talked mostly about restructuring, but there will be some rewording as well. I think you guys notice as you read through this policy, it's very verbose. I would probably make a lot of there'll be some rewriting. What I'll do is I will move the sections and certainly keep the intent of those, but there will be a little bit of rewording there as well. And let's see here. There may be, as I work through and we kind of redraft this policy, there may be some additional changes that me and Tyler or Shelley come up with this month. If we do add anything like that, that will also come to you next month in a memo similar to this, where we'll point out any additional changes that we make, and so you're all aware of that. And yeah, and again, if you guys think of anything in the next month that you'd like to add into that draft, go ahead and email us. So, all right, great, we're good.
Any public comment?
Public comment. There's no one online.
No, work session is adjourned.
I'd like to call to order the April 3rd, 2025 Parks and Rec Commission regular meeting to order. We can all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
sense. One nation under God. Liberty and justice for all. Got the words for a second?
If we can get the roll call
Wisniewski,
here.
Graham,
Here.
Stevens,
Here,
Bernard,
Here.
Fisher,
Here,
Pepper, Grammy.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Moving on to, is there a agenda approval? Is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Is there any revisions to the agenda? Any objections? Hearing none, the agenda is approved. Scheduled public comment? Seeing none, we'll move on to unscheduled public comment. Anybody remotely? Okay. Approval of minutes, February 6, 2025, regular meeting, March 6, 2025, regular meeting. A motion to approve February 6 and March 6 minutes.
I move they both be approved.
Any objections? Seeing none, minutes are approved. Moving on to unfinished business. We have none. Moving on to new business. I have a motion to recommend City Council approve the Parks and Recreation 2025 work plan goals.
Again, a motion and a second won't pass anything. It'll just put it on the floor and open it up for discussion.
I'll move to approve the discussion recommendation work plan goals for 2025.
I'll second.
Oh, call for a staff report?
All right, so our last meeting, we kind of went over some work plan goals and we kind of reviewed that we had annual goals and our vice chair, Graham here, said he really wanted to see maybe throw out a challenge to come up with a unique goal. So I took that in typical bureaucracy fashion. And again, we have annual work goals here that I think work really well for this commission that we could see every year that I'd go forth to council. But I kind of saw that as an opportunity as we do things like the park tour. We have a lot of new commissioners, and we review the capital improvement plan. We go through this master plan process. I see a really cool idea of what Commissioner Graham said, and I actually made it. I typed this up. This is your goal, though. I don't want to take it over, but this is what I heard in the last meeting was develop a unique goal for FY26. That may be better served as 2026 as we don't follow the fiscal year, we follow the calendar year. But I think the intent of this is for next year to see in this number 4, number 5 spot, a unique goal that won't be repeatable. So I think with this, it's as we go through this tour and we see the parks and you guys grow as a commission and see this master plan process, identifying a unique goal. And that can even be, let's look, maybe in our November meeting, we review what other commissions did. What were their unique goals? What could translate over to Parks and Rec? And then also in the memo, I attached that section of code as like the goals should always relate back to that code in some way. So this is where this could be one of those unique goals in itself. So, but no, I thought it was an interesting thing just to put as we go through the year, not to come up with anything, but, you have your pet projects, but you have something you may see is like, okay, this would be supported by code if I saw this get added in here as we tour the parks and the facilities.
Any discussion?
Yeah, just mostly trying to catch up here. So so the work plan, we have 4 as written, 5 goals. Is that, or space for 5 goals, is that accurate? And then you're leaving some room in 4 and 5 for us to create a goal or an idea that we would have ownership in as a commission?
Yeah, for the, sorry, where are we at with, you're saying 5 goals? In the memo?
So I'm just trying to go through the memo. Yeah, so page 8 and 9 in the packet. So number 4.
So I think the goal, my hope for this is goals 1 through 3 are repeatable. And then I added a 4th goal for the commission to identify a unique one-time goal for next year's work plan. Just to put that on your, when we go through stuff, looking through a lens of like, what would I like to see to get done? What would relate back to this section of code for our not on the 2025 work plan, so we can approve this, and then through our meetings this year, I can use this as a guide. But then to bring this back, like how can we accomplish goal full, and it can be as many goals as you want. If you guys had 6 work goals, unique work one-time goals, they could go forth on this plan. But I think putting this goal forward kind of gets the ball moving in, like as we do our tour and go through the CIP plan, what could be that unique one-time goal that the commission would like to see done? So that I don't have room for goal 5 here, but it would be, goal 4 next year, goal 5 next year. Like what would be those unique one-time goals?
Yeah, that's helpful. Thank you for describing that. I think what I recall from our conversation was, a core group of repeatable goals, and then, leaving room for one that would be unique to that particular fiscal year or calendar year.
And so, and that's why I created that 4th, sorry, to call it the bureaucracy of making a goal to make a goal, but to, again, put that lens on it. That's why we have this tour, and that's why we go through the CIP session, so you guys can see the workings of what we go through and what we bring forth to the council and what we hear from the public, and what's out there. And to follow that, that's one of the reasons why I attached one of the information items, the parks inventory, which kind of shows, during our tour, we can't always see everything. It's a long tour. If people have been on it, it's quite intensive, and we don't get to see everything. But that inventory adds in information. It references our land management plan, and it has a couple other tidbits of information on it that goes over stuff. So I think as we go through our tour and our CIP plan, keep this goal 4 in the back of your mind. And then when we come up on the end of the year and we start looking at work plan goals again, be like, I think this could be 3 really unique goals, and we can have a work session on what the commission would like to see go forward on this plan. So a goal to make a goal.
I just wanted to say what I remember of that discussion. I think that fits in very well, and I was really happy when I saw it in there, so thank you.
And Tyler, when you say end of the year, do you have any idea which month we might be working on something like that?
I would say this would signal to me, so these goals signal to me when our upcoming meetings come up, like in June, it's a good time to do our tour. Our CIP plan needs to be before that goes to council, so it's usually September. So I'd probably look at getting this introduced in October or November, where we could go through. And that would also open up the doors for me to maybe look at what other commissions are doing and what are their goals and bring forth to the commission. That might even set up when we do work sessions, sometimes we set up a little round table, so it's more like we can have all talk a little closer. And that would probably be a meeting like that, where we could really go through the data and get into the weeds of it a little bit more.
If we can call for a vote on the main motion. Or if it's unanimous consent is requested, is there any objections?
Who's going to request call for unanimous consent?
Any objection? Any objections?
I don't know.
Motion's approved. Then we'll go to the Parks and Rec Director. Best you can talk again.
Bring it on. All right, couple things going on in Parks and Rec world is April 20th, we're going to be having an Easter Day hunt at Municipal Park. The age range we are shooting is 2 to 9, but we'll be doing that on that Saturday. There'll be the Easter Bunny, the coolest Easter Bunny around. And then I'm forgetting our cleanup day. Also, on May 31st, we will be having our annual kite festival, and then on June 7th, we'll be having our plant day. And then we had such good success during COVID times doing, opening it up beyond that day. So we'll have a plant day and we'll end it with a barbecue at the firehouse. But we had a really good success with people they wanted to help, but they couldn't get there on Saturday. And during COVID, we had to break it up, but it had like one of the best turnouts where people could be like, hey, on Wednesday at 4, I can go do a planter. So we'd go put the supplies out and we had a really good setup on there. So we're going to try a bit of a hybrid. We'll still invite them to the cookout and everything, but some people have shown interest in being like, can I do it on this day? So we're going to try to solicit feedback and just work with people. Like our staff's super flexible in working with people and getting the plants in the ground.
The community cleanup day will be Saturday, May 3rd, from 10 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. The hub or tent with supplies will be in the chamber parking area, and facilities at the chamber building will be available for use, but that'll be kind of the hub where people can get cleanup supplies. We'll have fuel for the volunteers, things like that.
Would
we
it be
should-
possible to get a printed list of some of the scheduled events that have a definite date and give it the time and the location? Because as we're out there talking to people, they may not know that this is occurring, and that would give us an opportunity to talk about it. But I need the specifics in order to do that.
It would have been a great idea for me to attach the flyers as an informational item. And I would actually happily send those all out to the commission, so on there, so you guys can see those, because Jenna has made some beautiful flyers for us with all those dates and details.
Tyler, is there a location maybe on the website or something that we can find those?
So if you ever go forward, there's a city calendar that you can go forward on. If you go to kenai.city, there will be a calendar that goes on there. And then we always make Facebook events available usually as well. But on the city calendar, if you go forward and if you looked at April, you would see the Easter egg hunt right now on the 20th, and you'd click it for more information. Yep, cleanup day as well.
Well, and that's what I was going to say. You mentioned Facebook. I've noticed in the last week or two, quite a few Parks and Rec Facebook stories have been coming through my feed that didn't always show up before. So I saw the cleanup day. I saw the ice skating thing you did a couple weeks ago. So however you're doing it recently seems to be fitting with however Facebook decides who gets to see what. But I've definitely been seeing more recently.
Yes, our old assistant director wasn't as good as Facebook as our current assistant director, so thank you, Jenna.
We
No,
also didn't have a lot of so typically on social medias, we would post trail updates. We would post all this different content, like we would have the Skate with Santa and things that were going on. This winter was a lot of the stuff that we would usually head and relay to the community via social media just wasn't happening. So we're getting an influx of opportunity to be able to post these things because it's non-snow related or ice related. But before it was kind of like, this is what's happening at the rec center. And that was kind of it.
But those posts are good. I mean, I appreciate just the general update stuff. One, it feeds your numbers, so it's going to then increase the number of times it shows up in other people's feeds. And I think if people see the little things, then they're more used to seeing them, and they're going to pay more attention to the bigger things. I never would have paid attention to when cleanup day was, but I happened to see it a week or two ago and remembered the date and remembered it just now when we were talking about it. Otherwise, it's not information I would have gone looking for. I think the more you post, the more your posts are seen.
Oh, I hit a button. I might have kicked you. I might have turned off your mic on accident. I think I have the mayor mic. Sorry about that. That was, no, I was going to say,
Noted.
no, I was going to say thank you. I really appreciate that. And I took a little dig at myself earlier because I was the former assistant director. But no, one thing I know when I was in that role, we stepped in here when we went back into the rec and I came over and we had a new director and we were like, oh, we need to have a better social media presence. And we were excited when we hit 1,000. And I think this year we just hit 2,000 followers, which in a community of 7,000, that's really good. And it's nice to hear that our continued efforts are being seen. So that's really great to hear.
Well, and however anybody feels about social media or doesn't feel about it, the reality is that's how people find out about things in our world now, and it's free. So I say use it up and tell the whole world on social media, because then people know. And the reason you're doing this and putting all this effort forth is so that people show up. If they don't know, they're not gonna show up.
And then continuing down the line, if everyone recalls, last year we got our courts at the rec center sanded down and redone, and that meant like a 3-week closure. We're gonna have another one of those because it was discovered some of the measurements were off. So thankfully, the company said, "Oh man, we made a mistake. We're gonna come in and fix it." But after prom on April 12th. So if you guys didn't know, that's one of those things the city does as a community partner. The schools come in and use the rec center from 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. I just have a safe place for the kids to go. And then they go eat breakfast at the senior center. And so after that, this company is going to come in, and then for about 3 weeks, our gym will be closed. And then 1 week, the whole facility will be closed, but they'll be to redo that. So it's one of those things, just getting public notice out and everything on that matter.
Just to piggyback on what you said about after prom, it's something that you guys only offer to KCHS, which as a parent of 2 KCHS graduates, I especially appreciate that it's something special for Kenai kids. I know the other schools have to pay for space for their after prom event. And when my youngest was a junior, I headed that event for KCHS, and knowing that we could do it at the rec center, we had a specific space, all the stuff was there. It made doing it so much easier, and the kids were already, most of them, comfortable there because they'd been to the rec over time for Boys and Girls Club sports or whatever over the years. So I think it's something super special that is reserved for Kenai kids, that I really appreciate that the city of Kenai, works with the high school. Well, it's not a high school event, it's a parent event, but works with folks for that to take place for Kenai kids. And we were gonna skip breakfast that year, and the senior center was like, no, we want these kids here at 5 a.m, and we want to feed them pancakes. So again, something super cool that only the Kenai kids are getting.
No, thank you. I think it's such a cool resource, and it's a cool thing. I know PD gets involved, and it's a cool place, a cool thing for kids to be able to go to. Again, just to have a safe place to go to, and then all night, and then all morning. I've never seen, when you see pictures, you've never seen so many teenagers with like bags under their eyes though, when they're at the senior center at like 6 in the morning.
Because they're holding out for that big cash drawing at the end. That's how we make them stay.
And then my final thing would be that we are hiring for our summer positions. We had a really good first application pool for our PU fishery and for our regular seasonal positions. We have options in the PU fishery and for our regular people in the summer for 17-year-olds that we have a level 1 and a level 2. All you need to be is for a level 2 is to be 18, and then you pick up a couple extra responsibilities, but there's a slight pay difference in there, but we do have an option for 17-year-olds, and that's something we haven't had before, so we're really excited about that. Those will close in a couple weeks right after the job fair, which is on April 16th. And then we also just had a part-time rec center position that will be posted soon. I don't think it's posted yet, but it will be posted soon. Oh, it's on there. Okay, it's been posted. Okay.
It was on your Facebook post.
Okay. Assistant director is really good at that. No, that was a really quick turnaround. That's awesome. I'm excited though. I think no, it is posted. I looked, we had an applicant today. Yeah, someone applied at like 4 o'clock today. I did know that. I got that email. But no, other than that, I'm open to any questions as we go forward. I sidebarred that. I had the kickoff meeting with Corvus Design, who is designing our master plan today. So the tentative plan right now will probably be at the end of the month. We're going to get this locked in the next couple days. Will be to do a kickoff meeting with the community, inviting all community members to come. And then they'll also probably have a questionnaire for if people can attend to also be able to fill out that information. And then the consulting company will go through and look at all our parks and get all that feedback from the community. They'll collect all of that. And out of that, they will probably create a community survey, which will be available probably in August to reach out and then redefine the master plan and get a rough draft. And then that rough draft will come forth in front of this body in the fall as well. That also being said, that's also me saying you guys are community members who care about parks and everything. So I'd highly encourage you to attend these meetings, like those special projects and stuff like that. It's a really good place to voice those things and bring those up with this plan and get that involved. So that is a loose outline of where we're going with that, but we're going to get that locked in soon. So you'll probably see something in the next week or so go up on our social medias and on the radio and getting out, inviting the community to a night meeting that will be held at the Kenai Chamber to just get a community questionnaire, community panel, and get feedback from them on what they want to see from this master plan and in Kenai for the next 10 to 20 years.
For things like that, would there be a possibility of getting a reminder, maybe emailed or texted to commissioners, just so that those of us that aren't on social media or checking the website constantly?
Yes.
Anybody else have any questions, comments? Moving on, Commission Chair, that's me, my report. I had a chance to talk to one of the 3 new owners of the Kenai Golf Course, and they're all excited to be new owners and get things going. The one thing he mentioned to me that I never knew, and probably a lot of other people don't know, is for them to increase their fees. All their fees have to go through city council to get approved. That just kind of threw me off, like they should not have to do that virtually with, because if their expenses go up and they can't raise them up immediately and there's a big drawn out process, it just seems like it would hurt them financially if things didn't get approved to, say, increase them or stuff like that. So I just never knew that, and I don't know if they minded it, but I never knew that. It just seems kind of weird. The city dictates when they can and can't decrease their,
It has to do with their lease agreement, basically, for all the land that's city-owned over there. And maintenance the city does. It's part of their agreement when they sign the lease for that area.
oh, so the new owners are aware of that, I'm assuming?
Yeah, they're presenting with a new contract for that, and they're presenting it to the council, but it was all known when they purchased the property.
Oh, okay. Yeah, as long as they knew, I don't think anybody knows that, but it was something that was,
Yeah, and I think something in discussions I have heard too is that what we're setting as the cap, because one thing they have mentioned is dynamic pricing, and where, you know, they could say, we're going to have an early bird special. So say the cap is, I am making a number up, $100. They could be like, hey, if you come at 8 a.m., it'll be $80. So they're not dictating every price point, but it's still within the lease agreement to do some dynamic pricing for them. So it's just setting a cap where they want to see those high rates, but they have some flexibility in those rates too.
Yeah, just to follow up on that, it just comes down to, you know, they don't own all the land over there, right? So it's a service the city wants to dictate that we don't want somebody who's utilizing a really cheap lease basically for land to be able to price gouge. So we set it up I didn't set it up that way, of course, but back in the day, it was set up that way so that, you know, community members could still take advantage of a reasonably priced golf course on lands that were being utilized for a fairly reasonable cost to the individuals using it, is why it comes down to that, just so that, you know, price gouging didn't occur and the city had some kind of say into it. I mean, it'd be totally different if they owned all that land, but a lot of it's city land, so.
And in exchange, the city, I mean, one owns it, but two assists with maintenance and upkeep of certain parts of that land too. So that, I mean, yes, they can't increase their rates without council's approval, but they're getting a gimme from the city, and that there's some maintenance and other things that are being provided by the city that they don't have to pay for.
yeah, that's all I got. So we'll move on to Alex.
Our last meeting, we've got budget coming up. So right now, one of the things we did on a previous meeting is all of our non-departmental grants, so to speak, or council-appointed grants, nonprofits that get funding from the council are required to either give us a presentation or at least a letter of intent on why they want funding next year and what levels they want. So we had the Kenai Watershed Forum come in and do a presentation for us requesting an increase to their funding levels for the water monitoring they do on the Kenai River pretty much since inception of that program, like 2006. I could be mistaken on that date. We've been giving them about $5,000 every year to help offset their costs for monitoring the Kenai River water runoff. Last year it was reduced to $1,500, and then they're requesting that it be bumped back up to $5,000 again. They did a pretty good presentation and showed why they need the funds and where it is. So it's one of those things we'll be taking up, that and many others, at our budget session where the council has to decide on who gets what and who decided they wanted to renew their application this year. It's a little bit new in the process of how the council dictates who gets what, because it's been kind of just rolled over for year after year after year. And there were some agencies that we don't even know if they existed still, or are they still in business or not. So now they have to at least give us a letter of what they've done with the money, and do they want that amount again, or do they want more, and why, and that kind of stuff. So I think that was a good update we did. So Kenai Watershed presented that, asking for funding. We had a request, a little bit of an off cycle, but a request for a land donation again from the Kenai Peninsula Housing Initiative. They provide low-income based housing. It could be up to market value, but they take applications. Their initial intent is for people that are in these housing units to be low income based. And the city donated several lots along Redoubt a few years ago, and they have built a couple of the complexes right on Redoubt by Medway down. Some of it's senior housing, some of it's just low income housing. They're in the process of, I think it's 14 units. They'll be building just down the street again. They're breaking ground on that this summer. They still have one more lot they're going to be building on, but this was a land donation. They're requesting an additional 5 acres, which is directly behind the units they have now, as they have another funding source that came up, and they might be able to utilize it, and they would be able to have up to 42 units. A lot of senior housing, low income, but they reassess annually. So if somebody becomes above the 50, so if they break, I think it's 50% of the median income, I could be a little off on my percentages, then every year they get reassessed on how much their income levels are. And if they make it to the 80 percentile of the median income level, they're no longer getting basically a break on the rent. It goes to fair market value. So the rentals would still be based on fair market value, which is how they explained that it shouldn't negatively affect other rental property owners. This is helping people that would qualify for low-income assistance and rental assistance to be able to get into it, and also senior housing. Because some of the units are 2 stories, some of them are single-story, handicapped accessible type senior units. I think in the long run, it'll be interesting to see if they can get the funding. It's a big development. As a lot of you know, that there is a hard time for low-income housing around here. They're quality developments. They seem to be pretty well managed on the ones they do have. They're well upkept. They're clean. I haven't had any issues. I don't know if anybody else has with the units that are there right now. So as far as the low-income housing unit, it seems like it's been pretty well maintained and kept up. Then they're already going to have several units along the readout. This would be an additional set of units behind those, just a little bit back. The city has a 60 some odd acre parcel right there that's undeveloped. So they would just be taking another 5 acres of that directly behind it. So it hasn't been approved yet, but that's what their ask is. Yes.
Would that be between Readout and like that side of Inlet Woods? sort of?
Yeah, so just north
That
of Inlet
swath in
Woods,
between?
there's a great big swath
Okay.
right there.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
There's the new units right on Readout, and then these would literally border the same units just directly behind them, and they would make an access road that still, they would have to maintain and put it in and extend utilities down that access road from Readout to access those back 5 acre parcels, which again, I think would also increase the value of the lots behind. If another developer wanted to come in and build houses, they'd already have a beginning of utilities stubbed out, beginning of a road stubbed out. So it doesn't limit the access to those. If you want to go on to the city meetings packet, there is a schematic in the packet about what it would look like, what their renderings are. It looks like a pretty interesting build, and if they can get grant funding for it, I think the city donating the unused land is a good use to get more residents housing in the city. And I think it's quality housing, and they seem to keep it up and manage it pretty stringent. They have property managers and maintenance staff, and so it seems to be being managed well. So we'll see if it gets approved. The official vote will go to be at the next council meeting for the approval on that, because they have to have it. It's kind of being rushed a little bit faster than it normally would, because they have to have the land donated to be able to apply for this grant that's due April 30th. So it's kind of a rushed approval process, kind of off cycle a little bit, but it still has public notice available. So if you had any concerns, next meeting at council would be the one that will be deciding if we're going to approve the donation or not. What else? Really, on the only other resolutions, there was amending a council policy for recording council meetings. It got approved, and then also amending council policy for preparation, distribution of publication to establish a 20-minute aggregate time limit for scheduled public comment and a 30-minute aggregate time limit for unscheduled public comment. So this will cap those at 20 minutes total and 30 minutes total. If the council or body chooses to allow it to go longer, they can elect to do so, but this gives us a cap on that. So hopefully we don't get too many. If it was a hot topic item, stuff can go on for hours, and this gives us a solid line in the stand to be able to say, okay, we need to wrap it up. Other than that, we're getting ready for, we did approve the Council on the Aging's Commission's work plan last meeting, and then we have our budget work session coming up all day Saturday the 3rd. Oh, fun, always a thrill of a minute. But that will be where we'll decide on our grant allocations for the council and any changes or modifications to budgets that we see fit or don't see fit, or however they want to do it. So, one other thing is, speaking of dates, I think it's the 17th. I want to say it's 17th. They are having we're almost certain it's the 17th, April 17th. It's probably on the city website too, from 6 to 9. I know the time's right, at the council or the Chamber of Commerce building. They'll be having the final bluff stabilization project update. So they'll be presenting how it's going to start and timelines and that kind of stuff. It's the Army Corps of Engineers doing it, so it's not a city meeting. It's the Army Corps of Engineers' final meeting to the public. And then around, I think it's the 15th or 16th is the actual of May is the start of construction on that project. They had to wait till like May 15th, 16th for beluga migration or something. But soon thereafter, we should start seeing rock being placed and barges coming in. So construction is set to start mid-May. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. So if you're interested in how it's going to go and what the timing will look like and how they're going to progress and where they're going to start and all that, that's on that meeting. And I want to say it's Thursday the 17th, but I know it's 6 to 9 at the Chamber building. There's a bunch of other dates in my head, but those are that's the most common one I see coming up that might be interesting for you guys. Other than that, if you had a chance to attend, the March for Meals was this last week at the at the Senior Center. It was a good time. They raised a bunch of money with their dessert auction. Well attended, and always a good cause to see a bunch of, be able to fund a lot of free meals for the seniors and senior connections and stuff like that. So it was a good time. So other than that, that's all I've got. Any questions?
2 questions. Who's the contractor for the bluff stabilization project?
I couldn't tell you. It's some contractor out of the lower 48.
Okay.
I know it's in the paperwork somewhere. I've read it, but it's a company I have no idea about.
The second question is, does the city allocate like a certain amount of funds for the small grants program, or is it just based on like the applications you receive?
It kind of is fluctuating. That's a really weird issue that I'm trying to figure out. We've been donating around $30,000 to $40,000 roughly has been the budget lately. There's been, since I started looking into this, there's been some confusion on some of them. So some of those that were in that category were not actually supposed to be in that category. And they were part of, like, the Oilers baseball field had $3,500 donation for water and sewer. But that actually was part of their lease agreement for maintaining and lease on that field. So that actually needed to be moved out of that category. So that got taken out of that core category. The Boys and Girls Club had a $10,000 line item in that. But that was misallocated into that area also because that's part of their recreational, for the teen center management and their lease and management plan for doing that with their contract. So that got pulled out of the funds. So right now, it's much less than it normally looks like. So I don't know. I know we've had an increase now with the Kenai Watershed Forum requesting more money again. And then, there's going to be some other people requesting slight increases to what they've already been allocated, like the fireworks displays for the Christmas Comes to Kenai. The city donates several $1,000s for that to help out with that. 4th of July parade, they donate some stuff for that, So there's those kind of donations allocated in there. I'm not exactly sure what the funds are going to be allocated this year. I know we're trying to be fairly cautious with what's in there, so we're not like really giving out a ton of money, but I'm hoping to have a little bit more. I'm kind of the one that pushed for having some kind of a paper format or paper trail that asks for why you want it and what you did with it and why you want it again, because there hasn't been that before. So every year they're going to have to send in that email. It's a very basic email, but every year anybody who wants any of those or wants to apply for them has to send at least that basic information now. It doesn't just roll over continuously, which is basically what's happened in the last 20 plus years that they've had that category. So by asking questions, we were able to recategorize a few things. So right now we're at 30, and I think we've pulled 10 or 13,000 out of it. So we're probably out, as the budget right now sits, probably around only 15. I would imagine it'll come somewhere in the median area in there somewhere. We'll level out depending on what we want to do, because we do a donation to carts The CARTS program gets a donation from the city to help them. There's the Homeless Connect, gets a small donation, like $500 for helping put on their homeless connection event they do here in the city. So I mean, those kind of things are what we currently help fund, but as far as a set budget, there isn't one. I'm assuming it's going to be kind of a long conversation-ish at this next work session, or the budget session, because that's when it's going to get all kind of weeded out. Long answer, sorry.
Great, yeah, we'll hear more about it next month.
Anyone else? Moving on to additional public comment. Seeing none, the next meeting attendance notification, May 1st, 2025. And Commission-
Anyone being absent?
is anybody gonna be gone?
I will be gone. My heart surgery was moved from March 24th to April 30th. So I will be in Seattle. Thank you. Yeah, I should be good. I got top-notch surgeon, so yeah.
Any commissioner comments and questions? Anybody have any other questions or concerns?
I'm sorry I was late. I put 6:30 on my calendar. I don't know why. But I'm going to assume they're always at 5:30 from this point on.
Well, and just, you know, it was just because we had a work session at 5:30 and then the meeting started at 6.
Oh, it's 6.
Yeah, so there was a work session scheduled at 5:30 and maybe that's where the 6:30 came from. And then we had a meeting at 6.
So the meeting's normally at 6?
Yes.
Yeah, I had a question, maybe a comment related to the work session. I'm just thinking about like how to be real productive with a short amount of time when we're all here. And yeah, are we stuck to this format for a work session, like all of us sitting at this table and doing this weird thing where we don't look at each other when we talk?
No, usually when we have a more ironed out work session, there's a table set up we can do in the middle, or we can like sit in a circle. And
Yeah, it just seems like it'd be super productive, right? Like if, I'm thinking work session, you have get people together, you know, a blank piece of paper, right? And people can actually like interact a little bit more. Those are my thoughts. Yeah, I think this is like this type of format just doesn't lend, it's stiff and it doesn't really lend itself for like the free flow of ideas.
Anyone else? Moving on to the last item on the, is adjournment. See you guys in May.